What's the good word, y'all? It's your boy DKB here. So recapping day 7 of the New York Jets training camp, and it was pretty eventful from an injury perspective. Some people going out, some people returning. Of course, we'll dive into the highlights as well. And then, of course, we had some outside news. This whole Sean Payton craziness out of the sky blue, but nonetheless, let's go ahead and dive into it. So from an injury perspective, we did get some good news. We got tight end CJ Uzama back from the PUP list, and it seems like he picked up right where he left off in OTAs, and he's really we're kind of seeing return to form from his Bengals days, where he wasn't a huge big play threat, in terms of air yardage. You're not going to see a lot of 20, 30, 40-yard bombs from a guy like CJ, but what he is going to do is a lot of what we've seen in this particular training camp, for example, where he took a short 5-yard pass. He was able to, juke some people out and break through a couple others for an additional 15 yards. So I expect to see him utilized quite a lot in the short passing attack and making a killing off of it, especially when you have guys like Corey Davis and Garrett Wilson out on the boundaries, Mecole Hardman, which will be the speed threat. A lot of different options where if you're going to pick your poison, you're going to go with the guy that has some elusiveness to him, but he doesn't have any prime physical traits that you would necessarily be scared to have to deal with, right? And so I think that's exactly where the money's going to be at for him this season. So it's good to see that he's coming back and he's getting right into it immediately, especially again with having the time away from a guy like Aaron Rodgers and how he likes to attack defenses, the pace in which he's going to try to go up and down the field. It's going to be critical for, at least everybody up to the second string for sure to try to get on the same page with him. So excellent there. Wide receiver Corey Davis, he was out, according to Robert Saleh. It was from a viral infection. So I believe we're actually taking 2 days away from OTAs before we come back on Sunday. So if it was going to happen, this was a prime time for it. Give him 72 hours to try to bounce back, and then ideally we see him come back for a Sunday. Offensive tackle Mekhi Becton, he was able to go through practice again today. From what I saw, it was in a limited fashion, but anytime we can at least see that he's on the practice field, that is going to be a plus for us, right? At this point, you're giving out gold trophies for attendance when it comes to Mekhi Becton right now. So I'm not going to ask for too much more than that. Obviously, it would be great to see that he's out here mauling guys on our defensive line and everything, but to be honest, it's been fairly quiet. He hasn't necessarily really had any highlights from what I've seen. Again, I haven't been able to check out all the training camp highlights and stuff like that. But I mean, and most of this came when we didn't have pads on, by the way. So you also have to put, take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. But it hasn't been a particularly strong camp for him, which is a little bit shocking. I know we have a very, very, very talented defensive line, but you'd imagine, at least with guys like Bryce Huff, you'd imagine he'd be able to knock him off balance enough to not just get blown by and different things like that. So I know from a technicality standpoint, maybe that's not the right way to go about thinking it and different things of that nature, but can't help thinking he's been pretty underwhelming, but I digress. So in other news, Garrett Wilson, he tweaked an ankle. He came out today. It seems like it's just precautionary, no need to overdo it so early in training camp, especially to a huge critical component of this offense. So Robert Saleh did mention he's still going to go and get his MRIs and stuff, make sure he's straight, but there was no indications, no kind of concern or anything like that from Robert Saleh or anybody else that this will be a long-term issue to be concerned about. So I'm happy there, right? That could have been very scary if we were to lose Garrett Wilson pretty much at any point prior to real games coming up. But if we were to lose him so early, it gives us some ability to pivot, but I think immediately you would see a lot of us start to panic because we do see him as being this gigantic focal point of our offense. And even though we have a lot of other weapons that we like to rave about, I could see there definitely being some panic there. So good to know that it doesn't seem like it's serious whatsoever. And then in terms of the highlights, it was a pretty successful day in general for the offense, right? I think this was one of those days you could say that there was maybe a step forward taking as opposed to what we got yesterday, or at least from Wednesday's practice. But Jason Brownlee, he is flashing again, right? It seems like every practice he's done something that's been pretty impressive catch wise, and if nothing else, then he's definitely at least made his presence known with some highlights. In this case, he caught multiple touchdowns today. Bypass Sauce for one. I think it was about a 25-yard touchdown from what I've seen, and nothing crazy. It's not like it was mano a mano and he just upstaged Sauce Gardner, but seemed like maybe a miscommunication, a pass-off issue, something like that, but he was able to get by Sauce Gardner. Nothing there to stop him after that, and Aaron Rodgers made the connection as he would. And then with Chris Streveler, he caught another touchdown in between two red zone defenders. So if nothing else, you see a very clear role for him in the red zone, which I think is exactly where we should be trying to build out a package for him so early on. But I'm not going to argue about anything else because it seems like he's been pretty strong in these intermediate routes. I think the deep catch that he had against Brandon Echols was about 30-ish to 40 yards. And then, of course, the 25-yard one from today. There's been plenty others within that 15 to 30-yard range. So I think you're looking at a guy that may be able to do it all. I've seen Robert Saleh talking about how they wanted to draft him maybe since about the 5th round. And as they kind of looked at the board versus talent, or the talent available versus their board, there was just one guy necessarily ahead of them at a position that seemed more prudent to them, I suppose. But we snagged him nonetheless, and he's been showing out consistently since rookie minicamp. So this looks like it could be another huge pickup for this team. At this point, I would say he's definitely in the lead in terms of options available for that number 6 slot. If that even becomes available, but that's huge for a guy. From what I recall, I don't think he's necessarily had special teams experience. I can't remember. I know I did a breakdown video before, but nonetheless, either way, the guy's been very impressive. So I'm happy to see that it looks like we may have unearthed another gem. And then in terms of some defense and some special teams, pretty impressive day as normal from the defensive line. Jermaine Johnson continues to impress among a candidate of other guys. Pick your poison at this point. But in the back seven, we're still seeing impressive days by Tony Adams, Jimmy Moreland, the cornerback that we had with the team, I want to say 2-3 seasons ago. He's coming back, and we're seeing some flashes from him. So he had himself an interception return for a touchdown today from Boyle. And so, it's just nice. It seems like the depth is really coming together. Obviously, we know, which spots are locked down as a whole across the board on the defense. But it seems like there's been some pretty strong competition from what should be pseudo starters, I'll call them, right? Kind of like Pokemon, you got your pseudo legendary guys. I think these are guys that there's certain guys you could look at and say this is replacement starter level talent, and we just like the guy ahead of him, maybe a little bit more. So not saying that's Jimmy Moreland's case. I think outside of Michael Carter II, a lot of people think Brandon Echols could maybe be cut due to his suspension. We talked about Bryce Hall probably being traded, so you're talking about 2 spots potentially opening up. And we brought back Guidry. We have Moreland right now. I know there's 1 or 2 other guys that's back there, Jarek Bernard Converse, depending on how they want to try to play him out. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the back 7 plays out. In terms of special teams, Greg Zuerlein still seems like he's been showing it was wise to retain his talents. He went 6 of 6 today, a pair of 50-plus yard kicks tossed in there. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting... It'll be nice to see if there's a day where the offense completely owns the defense to a certain degree. The defense has definitely won the majority of a lot of these training camp practices. So whenever things truly start to click for Aaron Rodgers and all the pieces around him, I think it'll be interesting to see just how well that matches up, considering we expect to have ourselves a top 5 defense. So, just kind of getting a visual in my head of I don't remember the last time we've had a top 10 unit offensively and defensively. Even the Rex Ryan days, that wasn't it. I think the highest we may have finished from an offensive standpoint was the rushing category when we had that 2,000 plus yard season. But yeah, I don't know. Food for thought, I suppose. But let me know what you guys think. By the way, I do pay attention to the comments. Seen some of you guys mention stuff like showing some of the training camp highlight clips and different things like that. I'll figure out how to work it in. Not the best video editing with all of the good stuff, but either way, appreciate the suggestions, the tips, the support, the love, all that good stuff as always. And I'll catch you guys again. Peace.